Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. So Liverpool are taking on Sevilla in the first game of their Champions League group stage campaign on Wednesday night in what is probably our biggest game of the season so far. It is certainly an absolutely massive tie for two reasons, in my opinion. The first one being that Sevilla are really, I think, our direct rivals for top spot and for qualification as well in this Champions League group. Obviously, Spartak Moscow are not that far behind in terms of being a high quality team that I think will push Liverpool in the fight for qualification. But Sevilla are definitely up there with some of the better teams in the Champions League, and they will certainly pose a huge challenge for Liverpool. So with this being our first game in the group, we obviously want to get off to a flyer. We want to get 3 points and lay down our mark there. And also with it being at home as well, it is a game where you'd expect us to have a big advantage and to hopefully get a good result over Sevilla. So it's a big game for that reason. And also because with the Man City result at the weekend, the players will go into this wanting to prove that it was a blip. Because I think if there was anything positive to take out of that Man City game, it was that there's always the possibility that we could simply pass it off as a freak result, as a blip, a bad day at the office that simply won't happen again. And if Liverpool beat Sevilla, who are a team who are very, very good, kind of similar to Man City in some ways, then they could show that that game was simply just a bad day at the office, a blip, and they can overcome it and show that they are capable of beating these teams on a regular basis. Obviously, the flip side to that is that there is also a very high chance that Liverpool could lose this game because obviously, like I said, Sevilla are a very good team. And so if Liverpool do lose this game, then the whole argument of Man City being just this kind of freak result that we can pass off, that starts to go away, and we do start to worry about where our season is going at the moment and whether the wheels could come off before they've even really started to get rolling. So it is a massive tie in those regards. It could go either way, and whatever way it goes, there will be, I think, strong consequences for where Liverpool's season goes, and I'm kind of looking forward to it for that reason. I think it's good to have these kind of games where there's an awful lot riding on it and it's really exciting and very tense going into it, because you don't normally get games like that going into September unless, say, Liverpool are playing Manchester United, which is a game that we're all always fired up for. Then September games just don't tend to be that exciting, whereas now Liverpool have got a game that, like I said, kind of like the Hoffenheim game, and we all benefited from that. That made those games a lot more exciting to watch. We have a game that could define our season, and hopefully the Anfield crowd will get up for it on a European night as well. So the team news going into the game, the biggest news that seems to be going around at the moment is that Karius is now quite likely to start this game. Now, this doesn't necessarily surprise me that much because, I mean, we saw last season that Jurgen Klopp likes to have this idea of rotation with his goalkeepers. He likes to have a league keeper and a cup keeper, and I think now that we're in Europe, it's basically an extension of that. We're going to kind of do what Barcelona did, and I can see why Jurgen Klopp wants to do it, because while Mignolet is obviously, I think, the best goalkeeper and certainly the most informed keeper that the club have at the moment, it makes sense given that Karius still seems to be the long-term project that Liverpool have with regard to their goalkeepers, to give him some game time and keep him tested. And obviously with Danny Ward around as well, there's always a possibility that we could maybe see him maybe even in the League Cup game against Leicester in about a week and a half's time. So it makes sense in some way to bring Karius in. It doesn't necessarily shock me that Jurgen Klopp would do that, but I think it is a big risk, because the reason I said that I don't think Jurgen Klopp would persist with Karius in the Man City game after he featured in the Arsenal game is that I think that Man City would almost definitely have exploited Karius's weaknesses in places where Arsenal didn't. And I think Sevilla could be exactly the same. You know, they're not going to be as poor as Arsenal were at Anfield. They will look to target Karius if he starts, because they'll know that he does have weak points that do become very obvious, such as dawdling on the ball and not looking too confident in certain situations where he's not actually under that much pressure. So it is a risk for Liverpool to take, and obviously I think it's quite unfair on Simon Mignolet as well, because he's been very good this season, and since the turn of the year really, he's started to finally look like the goalkeeper that Liverpool need. You know, a goalkeeper that wins you games and wins you points, who makes the kind of saves that you wouldn't expect him to make, because I think sometimes, a bit too often, we look at a goal and say, you know, we can't blame Mignolet there, you wouldn't expect him to save that. But for a team of Liverpool's quality, you want a goalkeeper who makes the saves you wouldn't expect them to make, because that's how goalkeepers help you win games. At the moment, Mignolet looks more like doing that than Karius. So in a game that, as I said at the start of the video, is an absolutely massive tie, and Liverpool need to get a result here, it is slightly risky to drop Simon Mignolet and bring in Karius. But you never know. I think Karius, as I've said in the past, he is a good goalkeeper. He's had good performances in the past for Liverpool, so hopefully he can have another one of those on Wednesday night. The other interesting team news will be whether or not Philippe Coutinho starts in this game, because we now know, according to Jurgen Klopp, that Philippe Coutinho is back in the reckoning. Obviously he didn't travel with the squad to Manchester City, but he is very much in and around the conversation for being started in the game against Sevilla. Personally, I think you would start him simply because even if he isn't quite ready, when you look at the performance against Manchester City and you look at how much of a result Liverpool need during this game, you want your best player on the pitch. And at the end of the day, as good as Sadio Mane is, and there is an argument for him being Liverpool's best player now, Philippe Coutinho, over 90 minutes, he is Liverpool's best player. And also, he gets the best out of our other players. And given that Firmino, Salah and Mane all didn't really necessarily have amazing games against Manchester City, having Philippe Coutinho behind them will always raise their games, always get the best out of them. He gets the best out of all the other players around him as well, so it makes sense to start him in this game. So I think Phil Coutinho will start, and I think he'll probably be in that number 8 role. As for the rest of the team, like I said, I think it is going to be Karius in goal because it seems that Jurgen Klopp is that way inclined. With the centre-backs, I think it's Matip and Dejan Lovren. Lovren coming in for Klavan because Lovren didn't play at the weekend, either because he was dropped or rested. It wasn't made clear why. But either way, if he was rested, he should be fine now. And if he was dropped, then his replacement, Raniel Klavan, didn't really have the best game. So I think it's safe to say that Lovren will probably come back in for him in this game. Right back, I think it'll be Joe Gomez because Trent Alexander-Arnold didn't have a very good game at all against Manchester City. He was sort of exposed in terms of how inexperienced he is by some of City's more senior and more experienced players. So I can see that he would definitely be dropped for this game. Also because the whole thing of fitness management and managing his sort of mental state, really, not putting too much pressure on him. So I think Alexander-Arnold comes out. Joe Gomez comes in at right back for me. No problems there. Joe Gomez has shown himself to be very good so far this season. I think Moreno's going to play at left back. I mean, before the Man City game, I said whoever plays against City probably won't play against Sevilla at left back, but that was because I thought that Robertson would play against City, because I thought Moreno would probably be the best player to play against Sevilla because he has more European experience. He's played in more big games like this, and while he hasn't necessarily performed against Sevilla in the past, as we all know, I think he's got what it takes more than Robertson has at the moment, and Robertson will more likely be saved for the game against Burnley. And then moving on to the midfield, I think it's Henderson, Jan and Coutinho. No real surprises there for me. I think it makes sense to have Coutinho in that number 8 role where he can be most influential, because if you are bringing him back into the fold to make a difference after a poor performance, you want him somewhere on the pitch where he can pull the strings and have as much influence on the game as possible. So Coutinho goes in that number 8 role for me. And then the front three, it has to be Firmino, Mane and Salah. I mean, there's an argument for potentially having Oxlade-Chamberlain on the wing or bringing Sturridge in to rest one of Firmino or Salah, because they might have to take on a few more jobs now that Sadio Mane is going to be missing for the next few games domestically. But I think if you do have Phil Coutinho there, you want your best front three in front of him, because you know just how well those players play with Philippe Coutinho behind them, and in a game like this, that is exactly what Liverpool need. So I think Firmino, Salah and Mane as the front three. So taking a look at Sevilla then, their league form so far this season has been fairly okay. They've got 7 points out of a possible 9, so as it stands, they are fairly much holding their own at the top end of the league. As for their European form, it's been slightly wobbly so far. They went through a qualifier just like Liverpool did when they played against Hoffenheim. Sevilla came up against Istanbul Başakşehir and very nearly ended up going out on away goals. It was very tense towards the end of the game, and they only ended up progressing 4-3 on aggregate. So there's a possibility that maybe this current Sevilla squad, which bear in mind is very different to the one that Liverpool came up against in the Europa League final, maybe isn't quite as experienced on the European stage as maybe it has been in the past. Injury news wise, they are missing Nolito, which is good news for Liverpool because he is one of their best players really at the moment. He was a summer signing, obviously, from Manchester City. I think Nolito only actually spent 1 year there, but he will know a little bit about Liverpool from that. So I think it does help that he's missing. And just in general, in terms of the way they play a 4-3-3. It's a very similar system really to how Liverpool play. It's attacking football, high pressing football, a lot of emphasis on keeping the ball and everything, and apparently their biggest weakness is their defending. So it's basically Liverpool v Liverpool, or at least as close as you could get to a game like that by the sounds of it. So really, it should effectively come down to simply who is the better team rather than who's got the better tactical setup. And that's kind of what it was in Liverpool versus Man City at the start. It looked like Man City were going to edge it just in terms of quality, but hopefully Liverpool will have just a tiny bit more quality than Sevilla will have, and that'll help them win the tie. So going into this game, I'm not entirely confident that we'll win it. It's hard for me to really call any sort of result. And like I said, that's what makes me so excited about this game, because we're not going into this thinking, oh, it should be an easy win. Because then if Liverpool win a game that you'd expect them to win, it's never really that exciting. Whereas if they go in and beat a team where you're going into the game and feeling a bit nervous about it, thinking, oh, maybe I take a draw in this, it just makes it that much more enjoyable to watch and that much more exciting when we win. So really, I think it's only a good thing that Liverpool have got big games like this. So here are my 3 reasons why I think we will beat Sevilla. First of all, I think the potential return of Philippe Coutinho is absolutely massive for Liverpool, and should he start in this game, I think he could swing the tie, because when you look at it, he's really the only world-class player that either team has got. Obviously, Philippe Coutinho last season was kind of on the brink of world-class, and it's hard to really tell where he's at the moment this season because he hasn't played that much football. But if you look at the performance he put in right at the end of last season, during pre-season for Liverpool, and also in the small cameos he made for the Brazilian international team, he certainly looks like he's kicked his performances up another level and looks just about ready to enter that world-class bracket. So he's certainly a level above, I think, all of Liverpool and Sevilla's players at the moment, and that means that I think he has the potential to make the difference in this game. And secondly, with this being a European night, I think it's much less likely that Liverpool's heads will drop like they did against Man City, because I think one of the issues with the game against Man City was that we were 1-0 down when we lost our player. We were losing our star player, and we were away from home as well. So it's not like the team had the fans to get behind them, and the team kind of ended up just waving the white flag, giving up and calling the game a write-off effectively. And that is really what ended up with us losing 5-0. But I think with this being a European night, with the backing of the home fans as well, if things start to not go our way like they did against Man City, I don't think the players' heads will drop, because I think the fans will get behind them like they did against Hoffenheim. And as we all know, as cheesy as it sounds, you know, the Anfield atmosphere on a European night, it can change games. It can change results. Once those fans get behind the team, there's pretty much nothing stopping them. So provided we create a good atmosphere in the game on Wednesday night, I think Liverpool have got every chance of winning this game. And finally, the players should want to prove themselves in this game, because as we have all tried to write off that City result as a blip and a freak result and a bad day at the office, the players will want to go out and show that it was. Because like I said, if they don't, then there are a lot of questions that start to be asked, and you stop looking at that Man City result as an isolated result and start to look at it as maybe a damning indictment of where this Liverpool team is going at the moment. So the players should want to go out onto that pitch in this game, which is really the perfect opportunity for them to show that the Man City game was a freak result and prove that they are much better than what maybe people thought they were after that game. So that is all for today's video. Thank you very, very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, why not give it a like? If you're new around here as well, hit that subscribe button. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter as well. And I'll see you in a bit for the post-match video after the game against Sevilla. Bye for now.